In my last video, I went over my i3 configuration and I very briefly discussed the status bar that I use for my tiling window manager, Polybar. But in this video, I want to go over in detail what it is and how it works and how to properly configure it. Oh, and before we get started, I would like to ask you guys to help me with an audio issue I'm having. I noticed in the last video I made, the audio was a bit too loud, so if you can let me know in the comment section below whether it's still too loud, not loud enough, or just right, that would be incredibly helpful. With all that being said, let's get into the desktop and show you Polybar. So here we are in the desktop, and as you can see, I have Polybar active, and basically what Polybar does is it's a status bar for your tiling window manager. So it shows all the relevant information that you want it to show. So in my case, I have the current kernel I'm running, the amount of memory that's being used, CPU utilization, temperature of the CPU, updates available through both the Arch user repository and Arch official repository. I'm on Arch. Then download and upload speeds of your current network, what network you're connected to and if you're connected at all, the current weather outside, time, and then the volume. And over here I have a system tray with various things on it. Then on the left hand side I have the i3 module, which essentially shows the various desktops that you have enabled, and if you have modes enabled through i3 it will show up there as well. And then it's hidden right now, but if I bring up a terminal, you will also see that I have what's called polywinds, which shows the various windows that I have open in a workspace. So then I can bring up my file manager, I can bring up a web browser, and it will show all of that. And my apologies if you can't see the fine details of this very clearly. I don't know how to zoom in to the desktop, so if you can't see very clearly, my apologies, but that's why I'm trying to be as descriptive as I can so you don't have to worry if you can't exactly see everything clearly. However, let's move on from here and actually show you the config file of how you get Polybar properly set up. So if I go in and I launch it and scroll up to the top, and if I forgot last time I actually had to record this a second time to zoom in so you can all see properly. You start off the config with the general settings for Polybar. So here you have the main configuration of Polybar. Basically what this does is set the color scheme that you want that can be called on later in the actual file. So in my case I have a Dracula theme set for the background and foreground, and you can call that later so you don't have to go in and say, hey, I want this exact color scheme. You just say color background, color foreground, and it will automatically apply it to each module, which I will show you here in a second. Then as you scroll down, you see what's called the main bar. This is where you set specific modules and the way the bar looks for a particular tiling window manager. Yes, Polybar supports more than just one tiling window manager. There are actually a slew of tiling window managers it supports: OpenBox, Xmonad, i3, Favorite Window Manager, Spectre Window Manager, a bunch of different ones on here. And you can go through it. The config is available on my GitLab and see what ones it supports, see if it supports maybe your favorite tiling window manager and you want to use it on your computer. But basically, this is where you set an individual setting for each individual window manager. So in this case, I have it set to where the status bar is on the top. If I wanted it to be on the bottom, I would set the bottom equals false to true. Down here, you set the background and foreground colors of the Polybar for this particular manager. And so as you see here, colors.background and colors.foreground, which got called earlier over from here in the main settings for Polybar. Down here you can set a border for it if you want, but it's nothing I'm particularly interested in doing. You can set the padding, which isn't for the bar itself, but is for the individual modules on the far left and the far right side of the Polybar. So if you see there's a little bit of space here and a little bit of space here, that's what this is doing. This is where you set all the various fonts for Polybar. You want to make sure to have Font Awesome as an option, otherwise it's just, won't be able to get icons looking the way that I have it. And here is where you set the actual modules and where they show up. So you see on the left hand side I have an i3 module and Polywinds, which shows the various windows you have open. I commented out the center because it's just too crowded for a center module. And then on the right I have all of these various modules that I've gone in and hand configured to look the exact way that I wanted to. This is the separator that separates each individual module. You can set this to whatever you want, but I find the pipe symbol to look the best. And this is where you can go in and set what the system tray looks like, what size it is, whether it's offset, whatever you want, but I have it pretty much set to default. And then down here, these are other settings if you wanted to make certain things clickable within the i3 window managers. If you wanted to click left, it would do something. If you middle click on the polybar, it would do another thing. You can set various things here under this section. Then you might also notice if you're going through the config that you see main bar i3 extra or xmonad extra, favorite window manager extra. This is essentially a backup configuration in case you break this main one and screw it up. You have an extra one to fall back on so that you have something functional. I would mess with this in any way, shape, or form. Maybe you might add the modules that you have set up, but other than that, I wouldn't leave this alone because the point of it is to be a backup in case you screw something up with your main bar section. So let's jump into one of these modules and see what they actually look like and see how they can be configured. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to search for kernel to find a very simple and easy module that doesn't take a huge amount of configuration so it don't overwhelm you with information. And you will see here that this is how you get it to look the way I have it. So it's a script file, so it knows to load a custom script within Polybar's .config directory. And then it's executing the script and then how often it's updated. Down here is where you set what it actually looks like. So the foreground and background of the module, you can change this if you want. So if you wanted to make the background yellow, you could, or red, you can do whatever you want. So down here is where you set what's called the format prefix, which is what shows up before the actual module. So in this case, I have the Linux penguin icon, but you can set that to whatever icon you can find. And when you find that, there's a website called Font Awesome Cheat Sheet. So once you actually get to that website, you can take any icon you want, click and drag it over, and it will show up. Now, sometimes the icons don't quite show up right, and I'm not sure if that's a glitch on them or Font Awesome or what, but sometimes they don't quite look right. Not much that can be done about that. Now, do know that the icons have to be wrapped in double quotes. So if you go in, you have to make sure that it's here. Now, sometimes with some icons, when you try to scroll over to the far right of the icon, it doesn't actually do it properly. So what you need to do to fix it is add the double quote awkwardly right there in the middle, go to the left of the second double quote, hit space, and then it will correct it. And if we go in and save the document, you will see that then it applies to the icon that you want. So I set it back to the penguin just because that's what I prefer. And this is what it pretty much looks like with all the various modules you have here within Polybar. Some of them are a bit more intense. So with memory 1, you have a lot more things going on. Memory 2, you have even more things going on. In memory 3, which is what I'm actually using, there's even more. But essentially the basics of it is you have the various settings that loads up the module, either if it's pre-included with Polybar or a third-party script that you've added yourself, and I'll show you what those are in a minute. And then what it will look like. Is there a prefix to it? What is that prefix? What is the color of the actual prefix? And then what's the color of the foreground or the background of the individual module? Now, if you want to go in and add a custom script to this and create your own module, you can actually do that by going into your .config directory, scroll down to where it says Polybar, and then in here into scripts, you can have all the various scripts you want to have it do specific things. So for example, pav volume, if I go into here and I search for the module pav volume, it loads up the custom script, which is found within here. and then it does the various things it needs to do in order to actually work in the behavior that I want it to. So that was a quick look at Polybar, what I use to configure the status line of my window manager. It really is a fantastic status bar that's a lot more modular than other status bars where one only really works with a specific tiling window manager, versus with Polybar you can use it with multiple tiling window managers and have the same configuration with each one, so you don't end up losing something in the process going from like i3 to X monad. It really is worth taking the time to learn how it works, configure it, and I think you'll be really happy with it. But with that being said, that's all I have to say about that. If you liked the video, click the like button. If you really liked it, you want to help support the channel, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. See ya!